scripture reading this morning, you notice that this same passage appeared very, very similar not only in Mark, but also in Luke and in Matthew, where Jesus' family was coming to look for him, to see him. If you look back through the other activities that Jesus was involved in that Mark records there in the 3rd chapter of Mark, you see that Jesus was very busy. He was involved in a whole lot of different types of activities during this period of time. And just to review them real quickly, you'll notice that in the first 5 verses, Jesus was involved in a healing on the Sabbath day where a man had a swivered hand. And Jesus healed him by just telling him to stretch out his hand. Because he did this, the Herodians and the Pharisees wanted to kill him. Because he was working on the Sabbath day, and doing anything on the Sabbath day was against their rules and understandings. The next part, we see that the crowd around Jesus became very, very large, and he was preaching and healing many of them. Then Jesus appointed his apostles, Peter, Andrew, James, and John, Matthew, Judas Iscariot, Judas, the son of Alphaeus, and James, and several others who were involved, the 12. Then Jesus began teaching about demons and evil spirits and things associated with that. And then we come to our text. You'll notice that the title that I have for my sermon is the idea of misplaced love. How do we deal with the idea of misplaced love? Or what are we talking about here? To start out with, I want to talk about the idea of the love for a family. And this is the first main point that we're thinking about, that we have a very interesting love within our family. Jesus loved his family. His family loved him. He was the firstborn. He was a natural leader, as we can see as we look at everything about Jesus' life. And he was very, very special. We know that the scripture tells us that Mary pondered the things in her heart that happened when Jesus was born. And it would be foolish for us to think that somehow 30 years later Mary forgot about all that. And she didn't know what happened and how things happened in her life. Because we know that the very first miracle that Jesus worked was really at the insistence of Mary. If you remember that story, Jesus had gone to the marriage feast at Canaan, and there was a wedding taking place, and they ran short of wine, which was a major drink that they had at the wedding. And Mary just sort of stuck up beside Jesus a little bit, and she said, "Now, Jesus, they're running out of wine. Can you take care of this for us?" Now, we don't know exactly what Mary had in mind. We don't know precisely what was taking place, but Mary knew Jesus was special and that he could take care of it. And she was sort of calling on this family love idea of saying, will you help things out? We also know that family love is unconditional. That families sometimes will get into a span of one type or another. I can remember a family like this when I was growing up, a family of 5 boys. And boys were boys, and boys got into trouble, and boys argued with one another, and boys sometimes blunted one another's noses. And you probably can call in your memory a family similar to that in some way or another. But one thing you knew that you shouldn't do was that get in between those boys, whether they were being friendly with one another or whether they were fighting with each other, because you didn't want to get in the way, because suddenly you became the enemy because of that untraditional or unconditional love that was taking place within that family unit. Blood is thicker than water, as they say, and that family feud concept is there and present within our lives. Family love also can take a variety of different forms. We know situations where sometimes the love of a parent had to be what counselors and addiction experts call tough love, where the family has to withdraw some of the basic means of support because of the addiction of an individual whether it's to drugs or alcohol or some other type of addictions. And yet at the same time, family love can be really peculiar. As I was writing this, I was thinking about Shirley's family. She doesn't know I'm going to do this. But I was thinking about, the kind of love that you have in a family. Shirley grew up in a family of 6 children. The oldest daughter got married pretty much right out of high school to a man in the military, and they were gone. She had 4 brothers in between her and her oldest sister. All 4 of those brothers tried to get in the military. 3 of them made it. They were gone all over the place. Came back home. Her sister was in and out. Shirley was 5 years younger than the oldest or the youngest brother. Shirley's life was very interesting because when she was 17, she graduated high school, living in the mountains of Virginia. She told her mom and dad, I want to go to college in Kentucky, which was 6 hours over the mountains of West Virginia. They said, sure, okay, go ahead, honey. We love you. We want you to have what you want. When she was a junior in high school or college, she came home and told mom and daddy, I want to go to Texas and Mexico on a mission internship for the summer. A 3-day bus drive, 1 day across Texas. They said, sure, honey, we want you to have what you want. When she graduated from college, she said, I'm going to go to Chicago and work with a mission organization. 24-hour drive from Virginia to Chicago. Now, a friend of hers named Alice graduated from high school, went to college, got married, built a house, and never left the county. 2 kinds of love. Some loves let you go, other loves draw you close. And yet it's a family love that is very strong. In Jesus' case, Jesus left home and took off, was all over the place. His brothers and sisters probably stayed very close to home. Because in our text we see that they came with Mama to see Jesus. And so they were very close to where Jesus was. So 2 entirely different types of situations. But you notice that the title of my sermon is Misplaced Love. If we go back a couple of verses in Mark, the 3rd chapter, we find verse number 21. Verse number 21 says, when the family heard about this, they went to take charge of him. Take charge of him. In other words, they were going to get him. We're going to go get Jesus. Why? Because they said he is out of his mind. He's crazy. There's something wrong with him. We've got to go get Big Brother because Big Brother has gone off the reservation. He's gone over the cliff. There's something bad wrong. We've got to do something to take care of Big Brother. This verse suddenly out of the blue. And it's in the middle of Jesus' teaching about evil spirits. It's in the middle of his teaching about the way that the devil and Satan works in the world. Jesus' brothers said, we got to protect him from himself. We got to protect the family name. Because after all, Jesus is running around here acting like he's the Messiah, and what are people going to think about us? We've got to make sure that we protect ourselves. Now the question that comes to our mind, when you think about this, you ask, what in the world were they thinking? Where were their minds in this situation? We can't understand this. I think there's 2 points that we need to think about in this regard. The first point, you notice I put up here on the slide, says Christians are viewed as, fill in the blank type situation. How are Christians viewed? I was talking a little bit with Casey about the military, and I was telling Casey that he needs to talk to Dalton because Dalton's thinking about doing that. So I'll put these 2 guys together right here in front of God and everybody. But I was talking to Casey about the challenges that Christians have in the military. Because a lot of things that are natural characteristics of Christians go